Hello, this is Cindy Blair from the Alexandria Museum of Art. Welcome to another AMoA Art Together Tuesday. We're going to be looking at making art using everyday objects from around the house. Now we're going to be doing a process called printmaking. We're going to be using things from the kitchen, things from outside. Anything can be used to print, just about anything. So we're going to be looking at ways to create beautiful lines and texture. And this is a great one because really, truly, you need very few materials, and a lot of things you have laying around the house can be used to make a picture. So you're going to need to gather a few things. I'm going to go over the materials with you, and then we'll get started. I'd like to start by introducing you to the work of Francis Pave. He's a Lafayette artist in our permanent collection. This piece is called Two Birds in the Shade, and it does such a beautiful job of illustrating line and texture and depth. And he's able to get this using a technique called woodcut printing or woodblock printing, using carved wooden blocks. And he uses paint, and then he does it on top of painted backgrounds, and he really just layers and layers these beautiful wood blocks to create amazing textures and so much depth. So I want you to be thinking about line and texture and depth as we do this. I want you to think about layering the different types of lines you're going to be able to create with this. And now we'll get started and we'll talk about a few materials. I found some Legos that I thought would make a really nice texture, and a potato masher. I think those are going to make really, really cool lines. This is a meat tenderizer, and maybe that'll make a good texture. I have a fork from the kitchen to make some lines maybe. I also have a bunch of yarn, and we're going to attach that yarn to some cardboard. You want a few pieces of cardboard and some glue. And I'm also going to use some barbecue skewers. And we're just going to use a little acrylic paint. It's hard body acrylic and a brush. And that's on some palette paper, but you could use wax paper or foil, plate even. I'm just going to brush it around. And I've got a variety of papers: newsprint, construction paper, copy paper, sketch paper. I'm going to start with the newsprint, and I've attached some barbecue skewers to a piece of cardboard. I'm pressing down really good. I've covered them in paint, of course. And we're going to pull it up. Oh, and it did. It actually made a really nice star. I'm going to use some items from nature. Got some leaves here. And I'm just dabbing them in the paint. I really kind of had to experiment with this to find the right paint coverage. Lighter's better, I think, with the leaves because they've got like some really lovely delicate details, and you can lose that if you put too much paint. So as you'll see, I really kind of had to experiment with it. The first time I feel like it was a little too blotchy. Actually, my husband later said he kind of liked that, but I don't know. It's really up to you. None of this is, we're not focused on perfection now. Texture is really important. So, you know, if things are varied, that's kind of okay, really. But you'll find what you're comfortable with, the sort of paint coverage you're comfortable with. It does leave a nicer print. You can actually see more of the details in the leaves if you have less paint on it. So I really kind of had to experiment with that. And another thing I learned doing this particular radial image, this mandala image, was that the more of the red I put in there, the better it looked, regardless of if some of them were a little bit blotchy. It's just once you have them all kind of in place, it tends to work out. You know, once you have your balance there, it tends to work. See what I mean? Okay, so then I took my watercolor marker. Now this is less like a Crayola marker or just some washable marker that you might have your kids use. And I just colored on top of a leaf. This was a little experiment I did. I do a lot of experimenting in this lesson just so that, and I encourage you to do the same thing. And actually, I don't know if you can tell, it actually made a really nice print. Very pleased with it. Um, and then I decided to experiment with some just black construction paper. I wanted to see how construction paper would hold up. So I did a good bit of experimenting for you guys, and just painting this spiral yarn piece. And you just want to get it covered really well in the paint. Um, and then I print it. And you want to you want to press down really good, give it a chance to, yeah, fingers crossed, right? Hopefully it will work. And it did. So that's actually really nice. You can tell the glue was still a little wet. Yeah. So you just want to let that dry for just a second. And then I decided to experiment with some different textures on this piece. I have these little silver pieces that I've talked about before in videos. I am determined to find a use for them. I have not yet. And I just wanted to test and see because they have a nice little texture. And no dice. It just didn't work very well. Now I'm going to try the meat tenderizer, the pointy part. I just want to get get a good bit of paint on there on those little tips. And I sort of went between brushing paint on and sort of pressing the object into it. And this actually makes some really tiny little dots. And I think that if you put a bunch of them on one piece of paper, it would end up making a really nice texture as a background or foreground actually over the top. Then I'm just decided to experiment a little bit with the fork. It actually makes kind of cool lines. I experimented with a little bit of burlap, and I just got it nice and saturated with the paint and just started pressing. It's nice to have a sort of interesting texture as a background, or you could do a little bit over the top of your image maybe. So I think that I really like the texture of that. And I've got this masking tape that I taped onto some cardboard into a design. I had put some paint on top of it, and I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't great. So I don't know. I gave it another shot, adding a little bit extra paint because I was really careful with my paint the first time, thinking that I didn't want to have it too thick. So I just added a little bit extra. You don't want to put too much paint on there, but so then I just give it another shot because it was really kind of dry. And drum roll. It's okay. You can see it. It could be cool as a background piece. So just doing some experimenting. Okay, now we're gonna try this potato masher. Been very excited about it. I'm just getting a little red paint for it. I know I have friends who do this kind of thing, and I believe they use potato mashers as well. I mean, it's got a great line. It's got a great sort of wavy, crazy line that I think could be good as a background texture, or, just some sort of interest for the piece. And again, I experiment with both ways. I have a bowl of water off to the side for my utensils when I'm not using them. Now this was interesting because I thought I was just going to be able to press it onto the paper and it work, but it didn't work out that way. And I don't know if you know your potato masher very well, but there's a reason for that, and I'm about to realize it in just a second. And I'm just like, what is happening? And then I realized that it actually raises up a little bit in the center of the potato masher. And so if you go underneath the paper and press into it, it works a little better. So you want to get your hand under your paper first, and then sort of press into your hand, and you can sort of press and I mean, rubbing's kind of dangerous because you might move the paper, but if you really press up into that potato masher, you'll have something there. Okay, and then I experiment with Legos. I've seen a lot of people use Legos for this, and they have a great texture. So yeah, I mean, again, as a background texture, that could be really cool. So I did a whole background of those, and then I went back to my leaves and just doing a little bit of washable marker. They call it a watercolor marker, but it's just a washable marker is all it is. Your kids have them at home, maybe. So, and then just pressing these around the piece. I'm just starting to think about layering things for a background. So I'm going to do a bunch of these little red leaves. And then starting to think about sort of central. I did a big spiral in the middle. Very into round circular images, radial design right now. I don't know. I think it just might be the timing. I find it soothing. That's an apple slicer. I don't know if you have one in your kitchen, but they make a beautiful sort of starburst sunshine print. And then I'm gonna do my barbecue skewers on top of that. I'm layering my colors and my lines, just trying to make a really interesting image. And we're gonna do some potato masher lines all the way around. All the way around. Had one smear, but that's okay. Once you get it all down. And then I went back into it again, and I just kind of kept going into it with different textures until it looked really interesting to me. And then I went back into that little first piece I did, and I added a bit to it, and I just kept playing. I spent the whole morning playing, and it was really fun. I found it very relaxing, enjoyable. Thanks for joining us for another AMoA Art Together Tuesday. I really hope you enjoyed that. I had a blast. I spent the morning running around the house finding different things to slap some paint on and print on a paper. It was really fun. So join us again. And if you have any objects around the house that you're trying to figure out what to do with, you want to make something, you got a little time, drop us a line at cindy@themuseum.org, or you can leave a response under comments of this video, or you can message us at the Alexandria Museum of Art on Messenger or through Facebook. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Y'all take care.